everyone, and welcome to Around the Verse, our regular in-depth look behind the scenes of Star Citizen. I'm your host, Sandy Gardner, and joining me today is Technical Director Sean Tracy.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us, Sean.
Of course. Happy to step in while Chris is away visiting Foundry 42.
Yes, he is, and this past week saw the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo draw to a close. It was great being able to share those clips from Galactic Tour. What started off as just a fun idea, really, grew into something special thanks to the team and their hard work.
Yeah, it was a really tight schedule, but it was impressive to see what they were able to keep tweaking as the week went on and on. Even though it was one of our really older facial rigs, they were able to polish it up a bit more with each video that we released.
Very cool. And the other big announcement this week is that the 2.6 Alpha build has officially gone out to the Evocati. Yay! Jazz hands.
In addition to testing Star Marine and new ships like the Herald 85X and the Caterpillar, they're also going to be helping test the web version of Spectrum. There are lots of kinks to work out still, but so far they've already done a lot to help us find and tackle new bugs.
And we will keep on patching to the Evocati until it's stable enough to roll out to the PTU and then eventually live to you all. To keep track of all the latest updates, make sure to check out the 2.6 production schedule on the website.
To find out more about some of the tech going into 2.6, let's go now to the UK for the studio update.
Welcome back to the UK. I'm Mickey Oliver, QA tester, here to give you this week's studio update. Now over to Ali and Luke to talk about asteroids.
Asteroids in our game previously were all hand-placed, painstaking for the designers and the artists to position them, and obviously had a practical limit of how many we could actually place by manual process. So with the new request from design was so they could place hundreds or even millions of asteroids. So the new system was designed to be able to cope with any scale that we can come up with. So each asteroid field, we only have, the client has a few basic properties of how the asteroid field should look. So what type of asteroids it should be, what type of density, what color, things like this, some really basic information. And then from that, it's able to seed where every single asteroid in the entire asteroid belt will be from that small amount of information. And the benefit of that is that every client doesn't really need to communicate with the server, and they can, on their own, decide exactly what they need to render and what they need to simulate per frame. This is from our design document on how we design the asteroids and how we want them to work for the designers. So we produce a texture that has 4 different channels to control the 4 different main properties of the asteroid field. Or the 4 properties that they want to change per asteroid field. So to achieve something like Saturn's rings like this, we would have textures like this where we define the height of it. The offset is type of like how, if it was going to wiggle up and down, which for Saturn's rings they're perfectly flat, so that's a flat color. The variation is to handle like different colors, different materials, made of different composites, metals, whatever we might find, and then a density control as well. And if we go to another example, this is from Oblivion. They have this destroyed moon, which is a bit like our broken moon example. We might have something like this where we have a lot more interesting variations. We have a pattern in the height. It's going to have some verticality in it from this offset. It's going to have some variation, and then the density has a nice feather off on it. And it should be really easy for the artists to go through, or the designers to go through and quickly make interesting asteroid fields or quick changes to them, which they don't have to spend an eternity coming up with.
So what I want to show you today is how we're going to use the new asteroid tech in practice. First, what I want to do is show you how we used to have to create asteroid fields, because you'll see this new tech just makes it so much easier and look so much better. So this here, as you probably recognise, is yellow. It's the moon with the asteroid ring around it that we put in our first iteration, 2.0. This here is the current density that you'll see in 2.5. That's the old tech. Turn that off. Here's the new. As you can see, generating. The way it generates that is we have, say, about 9 or 10 asteroids, unique kind of asteroid models in there, and it goes through and it makes them one at a time, layers them on top of each other. As you can see there, the density, the depth, just the sheer amount. As you can see, these things are rotating very subtly. Obviously, the point is very subtly, but I can show you this kind of to the extreme, just very quickly. There you go. what's going to happen is the smaller ones will rotate much faster than the larger ones, to the point where the largest don't rotate at all, because we'd be putting bases on there, these kind of things. So for instance, in yellow there are these locations here that are full of pirates, there's gameplay involved, and we've actually crafted those things. What we've put around here is an exclusion zone, which prevents all the other asteroids from spawning in there, the dynamic asteroids. So as you can see, all of this combined, we're going to end up with a really, much more cinematic asteroid experience. You can imagine flying through here. It's going to be really exciting. We're finally getting the kind of density and movement that we've been aiming for.
There's literally no limit on the scale. We can have them millions and millions of miles wide, the asteroid fields, and we can all have them moving as well, and you'll never find the same pattern twice. Every single asteroid will be positioned uniquely. So I think that's quite exciting for the gameplay, that you literally, every single place you go in this asteroid field will be unique.
Thanks guys, this will give us richer, more detailed environments and really help the development process when designing new systems. Now over to Steve, who will guide us through the new camera options.
Last time around we kind of did a bit of a brief overview of the camera system and what tools our community are going to have to play with, and today I'm just going to go a bit more in depth with that, show you what exactly it is you're going to be able to play around with, and also give you a bit of an overview of how the spectator mode is going to work as well. Going forward, in 2.6, all ships and vehicles will have their default first-person cameras, which you're all familiar with. We have the third-person flight, which we commonly call a chase camera. We have our orbit cam, which, as the name suggests, allows you to orbit around the ship from all different angles, and then the passenger orbit, so you can basically focus in on your pilot and manipulate the camera around him. So just to give you a bit of a rundown on how the controls work, we've decided to build more upon what our players already know with the little camera control that they've had previously. So we've always key bound everything to the F4 key, so you just cycle through views by pressing F4 and they just go in order. So we're built on that by using F4 as what we call a modifier. So basically, in order to operate the camera, so you just hold down F4 and then plus and minus will change the lens size to a preset one. So you can go to an angle like that where it zooms in close, flans out the view, or you can pull right back. And like I say, it's changing your depth of field. With all the camera features I'm about to show you, we have a nice quick reset key, simply because if you're wanting to change things on the fly, or if you've done something that you're not happy with and you want to go back to the start, you simply hold F4, press the star key, and that'll reset exactly where you were previously. So that's your lens sizes. The other new control I want to show you is the target offset, and that basically just allows you to move the position that the camera's pointing at. So rather than focusing bang on the center of the ship, if you want to look a bit to the side, bit above, bit below, you can do that as well. So just like before, hold F4, and to manipulate the offset, use your arrow keys primarily. So left arrow will move you left in the x-axis, right in the x-axis, forward and back in Y is your up and down arrows. And if I just reset that, I can show you F4, page up, will strafe up, page down, will strafe down in the Z-axis as well. So now if I change to the orbit camera, which I mentioned before, what we've basically done is very, very similar to what our players have had before, but by pressing Z is a toggle, it toggles on the orbit controls. So this will allow you to move around the ship. You can still, in this mode, change offsets and lens sizes, and then you can reset them at the touch of a button. All of the controls that I described before, such as lens size changes, target offsets, orbit, all that is included, but we've also gone the extra mile and added a few additional features in here, which we think our community will make a real good use of. So just to give you a bit of an overview, this is basically the screen that you'll see when you die, and if you're anything like me, this is going to happen regularly. So when you're in a team deathmatch mode, when you die, you'll automatically start viewing your teammates. So the camera will lock onto those, and you can cycle through any teammates who are still alive during the game by using the mouse buttons. From here, by default, the orbit controls are unlocked. Because you're not controlling the player, we can just get those ready to go straight away. So you can manipulate the orbit as they're running around the level, and it will track the player as they go. Probably what I think is the most exciting thing for our community is that we've also included a free cam function. So because our orbit controls are live all the time in spectator mode, you can use the Z key instead to detach the camera from the player. So this enables you to basically move the camera wherever you want in the level. And in addition to this, you can make use of the save load system. So if you're making cinematics, you can cut to different cameras on the fly that you've set up in advance. So I can just give you an example of that now. So I like that shot there. I can save that to slot 1. So holding F4, holding it, the 1 key on the number pad. I like this one as well, just getting all the different angles that you can't normally reach while you're playing the game. So a real high up angle there, save that. And then in addition to this, we'll do a nice close up one of the player. And let's go ahead and change the lens size so we can see right up close, see all that detail. So I'll save that to slot 3. So while the game's going on, you can literally just change these on the fly. So I can go, right, that camera 1 that I saved is there, back to camera 3, over to camera 2 for that high angle shot. The tools have kind of been designed in mind for not just use in gameplay, so you will be able to create new views and bespoke camera angles for while you're actually playing the game, but we're also kind of gearing this towards people who want to make their own content, their own cinematics and their own screenshots and all that manner of thing that people are doing now, but we're just giving them the tools to make it easier and give better results at the end of the day as well.
That's awesome, Steve. That's already really helped me in my character testing. And I can't wait to see all the screenshots and the videos that you guys post to show off our beautiful game. I'm a big fan of these updates because they're going to make my job a lot easier. And that's all for our studio update, so back over to LA.
Thanks, Mickey. That asteroid tech is really going to help the designers a lot. When tech like this comes online, it can drastically reduce how long it takes to implement things, which will allow for new content to be added faster in the future. I'm really excited to see what the artists and designers will come up with for players to explore.
As cool as the asteroids were, I'm really excited about the new camera system. Our community was already creating some amazing videos, and I can't wait for them to get their hands on these new tools.
Speaking of community, let's go now to Tyler for the latest.
Hey everyone, Tyler Whitkin, Community Manager in the Austin, Texas studio, here to bring you this week's Community Update. The Intergalactic Aerospace Expo has concluded, and we hope you enjoyed the Galactic Tour videos as much as we did making them. In other news, throughout the month of December, we're going to be making the MISC Freelancer flyable to all subscribers. So if you're a subscriber and you've been wanting to fly the Freelancer, now is your chance. And now it's time for this week's MVP award. A huge congratulations to the Nubifier for his detailed efforts in creating a video called The Birth of a Starship. Now this video outlines the ship development pipeline here at CIG and has a lot of interesting tidbits, and I encourage you to check it out for yourself over at our Community Hub. Lastly, the week would not be complete without Reverse the Verse, so make sure to tune in live tomorrow at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time at twitch.tv/SIGcommunity, where we're going to be talking about everything that you saw on today's episode. Thanks for all the support, everyone, and we'll see you in the verse.
Nubifier, that was a really great walkthrough, a really great explanation of all the massively complex elements that go into building a ship.
Yeah, it was really solid, although to be honest, this week's a little light on weird gifs of me.
Yeah, we can maybe fix that. Sorry, Sean, maybe they need some fresh material.
Good call. Make some extreme expressions as fodder, it says.
For our next behind the scenes feature, the audio team walks us through all the work they've been doing to get Star Marine ready to play.
Overall, Sam Hall, the coder, and I, we spent a lot of time, first of all, unifying the music across the game, because Star Citizen is so huge and there's so many different aspects of it that we were working very hard in these different areas, but it was all getting very compartmentalized. We've managed to bring it all back into this one whole global system. That's given us a really nice foundation for Star Marine now. We have this great clarity. We know how to build these systems and get the best out of them. While we had the music logic system for the PU and for Squadron 42, for Star Marine, the conditions that you're involved in and the way the game plays out is a little more set, which is a luxury we don't have when you have the more open world situation of people could be doing anything anywhere. So we're able to be a little bit more kind of authored and bespoke in the flow of it, which is nice. So we have we obviously have the game rules for the different Star Marine game modes, and that gives us the foundation that we work from. So we kind of got a nice cinematic flow that we've built that just picks up pace as the game progresses. Here we have 6 layers of music, and this is the main sort of bed of the music during the game mode. from the start of the match, this is all actually active, but it'll be completely quiet because the two parameters that feed into this at this point are both on 0. The two parameters we have are control and time limit. So the first one is a parameter that feeds into the main body of the music, and as that number rises up, as you get more and more successful in the game, the music will slowly start fading in. And we use a lot of low pass, high pass filters, volume effects, etc., etc., so that these 3 stages of music are quite subtle as they start edging in. So I'll take it up to about 25%. And here it comes. So as you're playing the game, you're doing well, you'll start to hear this little gentle bubbling of electronic music. Now if we take it up to just over 50%, you can really hear it starting to pick up now. And you know, you're about 50% successful at this point. You're starting to feel the energy, it's getting exciting. If we take it up again, see these 3 layers of music are starting to build up now. Take that to here. And this point is really starting to pick up its pace. And we can take that all the way up to 100%. And now it's big, sort of full spectrum music. You get a real sense of excitement. What we really wanted to do is make sure it wasn't too jarring and too obviously tied into events in the game. It is, but we want to make that a slow, evolving sound, as opposed to, oh, you've done X, so now Y has happened. That's a really old style of game mechanic that we're avoiding. So while information is being fed into the music system, it's rising very slowly, and we have sort of a lock on the speed it's allowed to progress through its various stages. So you don't get this bam, 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 bam of increased steps of intensity. You get this lovely cinematic flow upwards that gets more and more tense. And there's kind of 2 different elements at play as well. There's a gameplay element that's the main factor of how the music progresses and gets more dramatic, but there's also a time element that's independent from the other one. And although it works as one piece of music, the time element controls like the percussion, and that'll start coming in as time runs out, regardless of where we are in that overall intensity layer.
So I'm associate producer for the audio team. My role is to communicate with all the other studios and with all the other producers all over the world, so in Germany and LA and Austin. I have to make sure that my team get the right information and right in time, so we can actually work on the highest priority first and make sure everything is just good in the game and has a proper sound and proper music and dialogue. And we're looking forward to see Starmarine into the game, because we have so many features that are coming in from the audio side as well. We have the pressurizing and the depressurizing state. So when you're outside in depressurized area, everything sounds muffled, and you know actually that you are outside, and all sounds sound like this. The other way around, when you're inside the pressurized side, it's just normal, but the people that are outside actually have the muffled sound, so you know there are some people outside and not that loud. We also have the music logic system, which is reacting to the state in the game where you are. So am I losing, am I winning, is it the beginning of the match, is it the end of the match? So it's very reactive and gives you a lot of audio feedback at where you are. And on top of that, we have the dialogue added. So we have the announcer, which is a female announcer I'm very proud of, because she's giving like the rules of the game. So she's playing the game mode, she's telling you when the match started and when the match ends, so she actually rules the game. But additionally to that, we have the leaders from the Marine side and from the Outlaw side. That is a bit like the music logic system, so it gives you feedback depending on where you are in the game. So when you have to hack more control points in the control game mode, for example, it gives you the advice and tells you that you have to do that, and I'm really looking forward to Starmarine.
When I was thinking about creating the atmospheric sounds, one thing that I kind of thought about a lot was whether it should be more subtle or more kind of in your face and very, intense and dense, because obviously the focus is on the first person weaponry, the shooting and the action and that kind of thing, and the other players. But I kind of decided actually not to be too subtle with the ambience and try to push more of the character of the space into the mix of the audio. So this is part of the engineering area of Echo 11. It's quite a kind of industrial, dark sounding space. There's a lot of steam and rattles and groans of metal, you know, contracting and stuff like that. It's quite ominous. It's supposed to be quite dense and quite kind of heavy, I think. All of these little spots here are placed audio that are kind of emitting one specific sound, yeah, they all work together to build up a sound of the level, a sound of the room in kind of one area. This is some kind of like pipey type things, and you can hear the kind of, hopefully you can hear the, you know, water and stuff like that moving through the pipes, and yeah, and there's steam and things that kind of emit from the floor, and occasionally you'll get like bursts of steam and air and stuff like that, both like that in the audio and visually. Yeah, there's a little bit here that I'm quite proud of. It's a vent that you can kind of crawl through and get into another area. But I spent quite a lot of time trying to make it sound very encased and very isolated and small. So it's got things like, it's got the same kind of metal rattles but with very tight reverb on them, so it feels like you're really in this tiny little crawling space. Another thing we're looking at doing in this first iteration of Star Marine is creating sounds that react in the environment to weaponry. So if you're in like a particularly junky room, and especially some of the maps that we're putting out for Star Marine soon, it's got a lot of, you know, bits and bobs and junk and stuff like that. So when you shoot your gun in this room, it will rattle and resonate. And some of the big metal objects like pipes and stuff like that as well, if you get close to them and shoot, you'll hear that resonance, which is really cool, and it really, I think it's very engaging. It really immerses you in the experience of being in that world, you know, firing your guns and everything reacting around it.
The dynamic music system is another example of a new tool that will really help let our creative teams shine. To be able to have the game adjust the music on the fly depending on what's going on is going to add a lot of dimension to the game experience.
We go now from gunfights to dogfights with a look at all the work that has gone into balancing the ships for 2.6.
So we're going to talk about changes to the flight balance today. I tried to avoid saying flight model because the flight model fundamentally is still the same as it was. It's still the same simulated system that John Pritchett and Chris really want in there. This is more iteration on how the values we put in and get out have changed, that changed the way you fly, not the fundamentals of flying. We've had some feedback from the community on what they've heard about the changes, what some of the Evocati have tested. We had some ideas that what we thought people would like, what they wouldn't like, so we were looking to do some more changes, and the community feedback just sort of solidified that. So we're going to talk about what's changed from a month ago when you were talking last time on Roundaverse.
The first thing we were doing, obviously everyone will know about, is the SCM speed change, where we kind of halved those speeds from what they were to try and increase the closeness of combat and make it feel a bit more engaging in that sense. And it just had to be addressed in some way. And that, I guess, leads us to demonstrate how cruise is no more, and how we've adapted Afterburner to fill that gap, to reach those speeds. But here we go. This is me now using Afterburner. And as you can see, I'm hitting cruise speeds here, and I'm just holding the shift key to get there. And then when I release, the current plan is to, once you Afterburner, you will stay at the velocity you've hit once you release the key, and you'll stay in what we're terming like an Afterburner active or Afterburner primed mode, where you'll continue at this velocity. Your Afterburner or hydrogen fuel will start creeping down slowly, but you've used a lot of it to burn up to this velocity in the first place, and have gone out of bounds.
Whilst we have reduced the SEM speeds, the afterburn speeds push you back up there. but the fuel consumption has had a complete overhaul, so you can maintain those faster speeds for longer.
You'll be able to maintain it at that velocity and use less fuel, like pretty much as we show here, but there will be a higher burn cost for getting up to that velocity. I just want to point that out. There will be the penalty of using afterburner quickly. You have to wait a little bit, but if you're using it to get over great distances, you're burning up fast, you'll then truck on as you are, consuming very little. But it's those moments where you have to quickly engage it in a combat situation that might cost you in terms of fuel use. But if people are familiar with how boost works, it's essentially shortening acceleration times on all of your directional vectors so that you can maneuver a lot faster, and that's what boost's been used to. If you're sliding off course, you hit the boost key and you get back on course much quicker than you would have done, but at the cost of the fuel, so you lose a penalty to that. Once you trigger the afterburner, you become a lot less maneuverable, much like you do in cruise, as I'm demonstrating here. This is me at full afterburn. I've got the restricted maneuvering. This is entirely based on where your throttle is once you enter the mode. So the lower the throttle is, the more maneuverable you are whilst afterburning. I suppose trying to change your course quickly, you decouple, you spin round, you hit afterburner to get those main engines to change direction as quickly as possible. As you can see by that. If you want an afterburner in 2.6, you just press shift and hold it, and that's all you need to do. There's no tap and hold anymore.
It's the same key that it was on other input devices like PAD, HOTAS.
We've just moved boost away from that key. Yeah, so boost now being on X, it means you can afterburner and boost at the same time, which opens up another level of complexity to the gameplay.
Using the phrase turbo like we did before, it overpowers, overthrusts all your secondary thrusters, I think is the correct term for it. So that's all your maneuvering thrusters, your retro thrusters, not your main thrusters. So it gives you increased thrust output to all those ones. So when you're boosting, you can arrest your slides quicker, you can stop quicker. So you can combine that now with afterburner to do a bit of both, or use it independently. So afterburn in, let go of the afterburner, hit boost, do a tight turn, something that's going to be really useful for racing. Yeah, so racing, everyone was super worried that SCM speeds were cut in half. They thought it was going to be super slow. And it's not, because you've got all these new ways of boosting. So for example, as Andy tries to fly whilst I'm talking him through it, you can use the afterburn down the straighter sections, and obviously you can modulate that with your throttle to sort of decide how much afterburn speed you want. You can absolutely bomb it down the straights and then back off, hit boost, put all the power to his maneuvering and retro thrusters to do tight turns. We've been doing a lot of testing of this with QA and the designers here, and we're getting pretty good times. We're by no means the fantastic racers, but we're getting some pretty comparative times to some of the fastest ever ones that have been set on the leaderboards. So I'm sure in the hands of the backers that we're going to have some pretty good new records.
This really creates this balance of afterburn and boost at the same time. I mean, you're switching between one, the other, or both at the same time. Try and get the fastest laps. When it comes to a straight line, I'm afterburning. I'm trying to line my ship up as straight as possible, hit the afterburner for the main engine boost and speed increase. Obviously, it restricts your maneuverability as well whilst you're afterburning at full throttle. You have to be careful of that.
That's another thing that's changed. Like, a lot of racing at the moment is simply throttle to 100%, and away you go. With this, actually managing your throttle can give some quite big improvements to it. The M50 handles quite differently to the 350R, not just a case of linear acceleration or turning speed now. A lot of the ships have favourable axes, so they can turn better when they're angled one way versus another. So how you do a really fast lap in an M50 is not going to be how you do that fast lap in a 350R. You're going to have to learn how your ship works, what's the strongest axis of thrust on your ships, and sort of customize that.
I think it's a lot of fun now with these changes, especially when you hit the afterburn. It kind of locks you into a straight line into the wall. Yeah, good fun.
And it also changes dogfighting as well. Those SCM speeds have brought in the combat massively. And another thing that we haven't really talked about is all the weapons have had a complete rebalance as well. We've gone and actually ground up across the board. All the ships have had their tuning changed, all the weapons have had their tuning changed, the shields have had their tuning changed, the health points of the ships have had the values changed. So it's really sort of not a clean slate, because we had, for a lot of the ships, we knew where we want them to be, and they were getting there, but it was sort of piecemeal. Every now and then we'd tweak one, and we're like, oh, that's fine, but it was out of whack with the others. So now they've all had the same pass together, so it's more comparative of the game as a whole, where everything's going to sit. We'll talk a bit about how these changes affect combat. So we're in Dying Star Vandal Swarm now, in a Saber Comet. So Andy's using the new Afterburn to really close the distance quickly, a bit too quickly. No, he's done it. Then he used presumably the boost there to stop yourself, get right on the tail of this scythe, and then hopefully do some damage. As you can see, everything sort of much closer, in your face. Looks much more dramatic than it was or is in 2.5, where everything's always so far away, everyone's flying really fast, and that's one of the things we really wanted to tackle with this, was to get the combat in close, in your face.
Yeah, you've still got the advanced skill of a pilot can use Afterburner to their advantage. They still have it, as much fuel as they've got, they can use it to their advantage and still combat at high speed if they're good enough to do it around tight spaces and around these asteroid belts, for example.
Those who want to push themselves with advanced tactics, skills and mechanics can still do that, and they've got new challenges to learn. We've also got the missile camera as well, which is in there.
Oh yeah, let's do that. All right, let's pick our victim. Go. Still going though.
Yeah, still going. Works really nicely with the some of the bigger torpedoes that we have in the game, like on the Retaliator. It's just seeing these torpedoes go for 10 kilometers into something. So that's the new flight model changes that we're working on. Still lots of iterations to go. Got a lot of certainly UI elements to help improve there. Hopefully that clears up some concerns that people had, makes people happy. That's all from us. Thanks. Bye.
Missile camp's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great way to see beautiful explosions up close, and who doesn't like explosions?
Yeah. I know there's been some concern with cruise mode going away, but I think once backers get a chance to test the new adjustments for themselves, they'll see that all of these changes, we're giving them actually a lot more options. With the weapon and component balancing along with afterburn and boost working in conjunction, it can provide players with a lot more flexibility while flying and fighting.
Very cool, and I wonder what the new race lap time will be.
Yeah, it's probably going to be way better than something I can do. But of course, it's not only about the new times, now that there's going to be all those new ships to try out too.
True. We will have to see how the Herald and the 85X do against the old favorites, but speaking of crossing the finishing line.
That's all we have for today's show. We'd like to thank our subscribers who help us produce extra content like this, and Bug Smashers and Lore Makers, and all our behind-the-scenes shows.
Yes, we do. And a special thanks to all of our backers, new and old, who have made Star Citizen possible, and we could not do this without all of your support.
To find out more about some of the features we highlighted, make sure to tune in tomorrow at 8 a.m. Pacific time.
For Reverse the Verse with Nick Helms in the UK.
In the UK, thanks, Sandy.
And until then, we will see you
around
the verse.
Oh, you do this? Around the verse.
You know it.
Oh, this way.
Yeah.
Around the verse.
It's okay.
Yeah.
We're all good.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.